Welcome to the Rising Phoenix Business Call. And I'm Sandy Corrigan.
I'm Tom Corrigan.
My co-host. And Chuck is not on with us this morning. He's attending some family business today, but he might get the tail end, and he'll certainly be here next week.
Yep.
So, yeah. So we're excited. So we do you want to interrupt this message?
Well, just because we have
to honor Chuck, and we always got to have that as part of what we do. So
we found the real reason behind the pandemic and how it got its name. We're not going to read it to you. We'll just let you chuckle on your own.
Anybody else feel like it's been really easy to eat 12 hours a day at home during the pandemic?
Okay, moving on.
Yeah, exactly. Yesterday we ate out for the first time, and it was like, this is really strange, in like 3 months, but it was really fun.
It was really nice. People came out and they brought us drinks and food. It was awesome.
Have our dog.
It was a whole new experience.
All right, so what are we going to do this morning, Tom?
Hey, we're going to have a couple people help us today understand how important it is to create what we call lumberjacks or strategic alliances and how that works in their business, rather than, because we talk about building a strategic network rather than networking, and why it's so much more powerful. We're gonna help you with a model that we've received and modified over the years and used a lot to get really clear in communication. We find that sometimes we're not getting what we think we're asking for, or that we walk away from conversations and go, what was that about? Anybody else, experience that? I think we all do at some point in time. So it's a real simple model to help you get super clear with the other person or persons about what you're trying to achieve and what you want. We're going to take a couple bottlenecks. We're also going to get into groups and give you a challenge questions to talk through on that concerning how we communicate. We're going to take a couple bottlenecks if we have time. And
by the way, I want to mention that last week, I know that we had a couple of people drop off the call when we got into groups. And so there is an option for you to not accept your invitation into a group. We never want to force anybody into a group. We want to invite you into a group. And once you're in the group, you can share or not. It's never an obligation. It's just always an opportunity. So if that's you this morning, you're like, I just don't want to participate, I'm not comfortable with that, then just don't accept the invitation, but you don't have to drop off the call, and then you can drop back on. So we didn't tell you that last week because it was a new learning for us. So we want you to feel comfortable and be able to just even participate. So most of you, I think, have been on the call before, but if you haven't, welcome to Rising Phoenix Business Community. And we did name this after that mythical bird who every 100 years chooses to settle into a nest of kindling, to burn up the old stuff, to create something new. And so all of us are probably in some way, shape, or form in our lives, in our businesses, right? In our mindsets, maybe in our physical selves, in our spirit and soul. We're reinventing ourselves in this crazy reality we've had over the last few months. And so, there are some things certainly I could go back and tell you that I've burnt up and that I am not bringing forward, and other things that I'm trying on for the first time. So the good thing is we know that adults don't learn unless we are disoriented. And so we should all just celebrate all this disorientation we have in our lives right now.
So take a moment and make sure that you're just a slightly disoriented, so you can learn together.
Yeah. So on that scale from 1 to 10, 1 to 4 is you're not disoriented, you're not learning. 5, 6, 7. So in your energy, you're learning. 8, 9, 10, you're freaking out. So we want to stay in the 5, 6, 7.
Let's stay in the middle here together.
So we're excited this morning because this morning we have 2 of our 3 to 5 club members, Janelle Orion with Shine Bright Marketing and Andrea Enright with The Boot Factor. And both of these women are part of our Downtown Altitude, 3 to 5 club. And last week we talked about lumberjacks and strategic partners. And so Janelle and Andrea are those lumberjacks and strategic partners. And so we want to introduce you and ask you to come on and tell you a little bit about how did you form this partnership, and what are the results from becoming strategic alliances. So Janelle, how about if I have you jump in first?
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Sandy and Tom, and hi, everyone. Good morning. As Sandy mentioned, Andrea and I, are now like very closely aligned as far as business partner lumberjacks go. We met several years ago, and we actually worked together. She's a brand marketer, I'm a marketing strategist, and so I had asked her to help with one of my clients with blogging. And over the course of time, about a year ago, we ended up connecting with another client, and the energy that the two of us, when the two of us came together, like there was such a spark of energy, and then that even amplified more when we worked together on that with that client. And it was something that was so impactful that we looked at each other and said, we've got something special here. We want to bring this even closer together. So we have continued to pass clients back and forth, and then we actually now have a combined package offering. Again, we're still two separate companies. We each have our own clients, but we have the same target audience, and we have complementary offerings.
And Andrea, how about if we let you jump in and tell us a little more? You'll have to unmute because you're muted.
Thank you. Hi guys. Thanks for inviting us onto the meeting today. And thanks for explaining the Phoenix. Like I'd heard about this in the past and Rising Phoenix and different concepts, but it's good to review that meaning behind it. I love that. So yeah, as Janelle said, we have really come together, and I think so I think there's like a few pillars like a benefit that we've received from this. And like one is just that like, okay, wow, our services are complementary. So like, it's great to go out and find somebody who has the same, what we call avatar, same target audience, but provides a different service, right? So that's a great like sort of litmus test for I think a good lumberjack. Of course, lots of other lumberjack types too, but that really works for us. So we're going after the same client, but we offer different things. And then so that's an amazing benefit. And then, the second one though, is like, was an unexpected thing of like, wow, we have complementary services. And then we also get to like be together as entrepreneurs instead of alone. And I think, I've been on my own since 2002. So it's just like, I never had a partner, never was working with anyone else closely other than like, a little bit like maybe a vendor, but in this way we can constantly A/B test, evaluate, measure, bounce ideas off each other, and so it's really formed into, and that's been the unexpected benefit out of it. I think now it's like so much easier to run a business when you have this other perspective to weigh in, right? So that's kind of taken on its own life. And then the other thing is just that really when I'm surprised at how easy it is when I'm on with a client, because our services are so close to each other. I'm thinking about how my client could benefit from Janelle and how they could benefit from me. And so in this way, if I feel like, they're not ready for me yet, they need to go to her first, like I'm offering them that value. And of course they're loving that, right? They're like, oh, she's not trying to ridiculously sell me. She is truly evaluating my business and just telling me what's right for me in the moment. Right. So that's a win-win. It like gives me credibility and it gives them what they need. So I think that was another unexpected benefit of the lumberjack.
And how long have you both been working together?
Yeah, as closely as we are right now, I would say it's been about a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
So a question was asked in the chat box. Your business is marketing, and you each have a marketing company, and marketing and branding, correct? And
it'd be good to define that. Like, yeah. So, branding is often thought of as a logo, right? Branding really, the word branding has to go away. I'm just like mourning it and I just refuse to kind of say goodbye to it. But in general, it's such a misnomer, people don't get it. So really what we do is Janelle does the marketing strategy. She's like, hey, where should you invest your money? What platform should you be on? Let's develop your services. How should you be strategically networking? What are the marketing tools you need? While I am sitting down and saying, okay, what is your messaging base foundation, right? Like, you need a LinkedIn profile, you need a bio, you need an elevator speech, and you need a marketing one sheet, and of course, eventually need website content, right? So what are the messages you are going to constantly upcycle when people ask what you do? How can those be really human? really meaningful, but also strategic and storytelling. So those are, just to clarify, that's how those work together.
Janelle, did she get your description correct?
Yes, you can bet she did. Yes.
Okay, good. You know, when I listen to you, I realize that if I'm not in a place of abundance, what you're saying is really challenging. Wait a minute, I'm going to promote somebody else's business. What happens if they don't come back to me, and all those spin-off questions? You know, how have you dealt with that?
Yeah, what's been really, what's been so in sync is realizing that, you know, selling yourself to someone who's not ready for your services doesn't serve anyone. And so where the abundance comes in is actually the increased trust. And so it will come back, it definitely comes back to us, whether or not in that specific client, but establishing and holding integrity and trust with everyone that we come across is where that's what pays off in dividends.
I love that. And I love that you guys really looked at that beyond just your business. Like, it allows you to niche. It allows you to collaborate. So like you said, Andrea, you're not alone so much. And so often we're not thinking about the fact that, let's say Tom Fanning has all the clients that I want, right? But he does something a little bit different or a lot different. That there's this opportunity for us to get together and really promote one another. And so it really is, I think, a time where people are looking for that in this move to participation age also. And in fact, when I facilitated your club, I thought you guys like had a business together. Because you knew each other so well, and there was so much synergy and spark between you. It was very exciting. So I would hire you
and thanks for pointing that out, because that's actually what we recognize, and that was what brought us together, was that synergy and spark. And so we've now just continued over the year to like up level it. And one of the things that we believe, and I'm speaking as a we here, I recognize that, because we had this conversation just last week, was that in order for like a lumberjack or a power partner to really be effective, you need to somehow be able to stay in front of each other, right? And so Andrea and I actually meet every week now for 2 hours. I mean, this is because I followed her into 3 to 5 Club. So we have a similar vocabulary, we have similar lifestyle design, we have a lot of things in common, so that we have decided to align our strategy session so that we're each committed to working on our businesses, and then we can it's more easy to commit when I'm actually committed to Andrea. So that's how I think we've really up-leveled our partnership and each of our own businesses, is because we are holding each other accountable for the parts of the business that could be hard, and they're more fun to do together than alone.
That's awesome. That's a great point. Well, we love that you guys were willing to come on this morning, and we want you to put both your companies, your name, your contact information, how people can get a hold of you in the chat box for the group that's on this morning and people who will listen beyond this. But I would love to personally do a one-to-one with you, and I bet there are a lot of people on the call who would love to get to know you better and see how we can help you forward what you're doing, and love that. I've never liked partnerships because it seems like they always fail. And so this is just like such a great hybrid of that, right? 2 companies coming together where you still have some autonomy in what you do, and you know, you're niching and it's your flavor, but you get to work together.
And feeding each other business.
Good job.
Yeah. And I wanted to say thank you, Tom, for pointing out like that it is an attitude of abundance, right? I just like kind of forget that, but I'm just like, you know, I adore Janelle, and like we have such a good time with our business. I mean, and I honestly can say, because I totally agree, Sandy, I was like, partnerships, too risky. Like people, you know, I think also though, you know, as you get older too, you're like, okay, I want to work on myself. You become more self-aware. How can someone else help me grow? But I can honestly say now that sometimes even the result, it's like, oh, well, who cares what happens? I'm having a better time doing what I'm doing. And like, that's the biggest win of all, right? That I'm enjoying my business in such a bigger way. So I just want to throw that in. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you both.
Thanks so much.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone.
So people can get a hold of you. And we're just going to move into, like, this is a perfect segue, because one of the things Tom said is we want to bring to you something that's really helped us. We have a blended family. We sometimes called it a multi-nuclear family. We were trying not to be multi-nuclear. We raised 4 girls.
We're trying not to
Yes.
not to become a nuclear.
Nuclear.
Yeah.
And so we've used what we're going to present to you both with our children as early as elementary and middle school, as well as we've taught a lot of conferences and companies and people in families and marriages this model. And one of the things that I was thinking about when Chuck and Tom and I talked about this last week in terms of what we were going to do is that, would you agree that there's so much craziness right now in the world in terms of what people are doing and saying and behaving like? Like, is it just me, or is everybody like, where have people's minds gone right now? So it's this time of disorientation. It also can be this great time of reinvention. And one of the things that, you know, as I'm revisiting this again, I'm thinking about, okay, like I think a certain way and behave a certain way because of where I grew up, the family I grew up in, the experiences I've had, the things that I've believed that other people have told me, my religious upbringing, my business experiences, you know, my personal triumphs and tragedies all play into this way of thinking for me. And as I want to continue to grow, I want to stay in curiosity and even suspend judgment about myself and other people so that I can really dig in to understand how to have a better conversation, how to ask better questions, how to be able to understand somebody who may have a very different experience that I can, so that I can find those points of collaboration and those points of partnership. And if there's ever a time in the history of my life that I want to be able to do that, it's now, right? With everything going on and there's all this possible division, and I want to be a person that brings people together. And so I have to start with me, right? It's that internal work. I got to figure out what's going on in me so I can have a better conversation. So we are going to have Megan actually put what we're presenting in the chat box so that you can download this and share it and practice it. And we call it the clearing model because it's about first getting clear with me. So if I'm having a conflict or I'm feeling uncomfortable about something, or maybe I'm even having resentment or I'm angry, this model helps me first get really clear about what is going on in me internally, what triggers are happening for me, what past experiences, what thoughts am I thinking, what's going on. And I always journal this first. And sometimes I don't need to even go to anybody else because I've figured it out for me that the problem isn't with them, it's with me. And then sometimes
We were having a conversation last week, pretty nominal stuff, everyday things. Sandy said something to me and all of a sudden I raised my voice.
he had like lots of energy and I was like,
Lots
what's that about?
of energy, like over the top. And she said, what are you doing? And I got a little defensive. And then later on, as I started thinking about this, I just started rolling through this model because we use it so much. And I went, oh, yeah, there's the trigger right there. And so I'm able to look at that and so that I can try to address that and be aware so that I don't want to yell at her. You know, I want a great relationship with her. I don't know if you ever find that, whether it's yourself or significant other or your kids or even clients, you know, that you're going, what was that about? And where did that energy come from? And what did I say, or what did they say, or what's going on in me that I'm so troubled right now? So this helps you get to all that.
Yeah, so we're going to give you a framework. So let's go to this first slide and share it so you guys can all see it. And again, Megan put it in the chat box so you can download it and print it, but it is
This is an abbreviated version of this.
Yeah, to keep relationships clean and healthy, to how to understand and be understood and how to get what you want. And as Tom said, yep, this is abbreviated. So we have a much longer presentation if you want it.
So it's you know, the first thing to understand in communication from our perspective is we want to be understood and we want to understand. You know, Stephen Covey says, seek first to understand, which I think is a better model, because if we consider the other person, what's going on, there's always more to the story behind that than what we know. they have a history we don't fully understand. Even though we've been together many years, there's still things coming up. And at the end of the day, we all want to get what we want, right? I just think, if everybody would just pay attention to me when I ask them for something, then I would just get what I wanted.
Assuming everybody understands exactly that the words that he used was the picture that formed in my head when he said that.
Exactly. Thank you. So there's some context for this model. And we believe people can be mirrors for us as individuals. Sometimes talking to somebody, all of a sudden, they're reflecting back to me something I'm bringing to the conversation. And it's not always something that I want to look at, but there it is. And I think it'll keep showing up until I am willing to deal with it.
This also gives us an opportunity to look at ourselves, like we said, determine what we're feeling, what we're thinking, what we're assuming. Sometimes we're just reacting and we're not pausing long enough to go, what thoughts am I thinking? What feelings, am I even in touch with, I'm feeling something? Or what am I making up or assuming? We have a mug around here. In fact, I meant to grab it, that our kids made for us that says no MSU, and it's not Michigan State University. It's, not making stuff up or not making shit up, and we're really good at it. Like, we're terrific at making all kinds of stuff up and having Academy Award winning movies playing in our head about what could possibly be happening. And then we don't check it out. Like, we just run on that and we see somebody and then we assume that's what's really going on. And so this gives us a chance to step back and actually check out, is what I'm thinking actually true at all?
When I make an assumption about the person on the other side, when communication is not going like I want, just to be a little vulnerable, I tend to use words in my head like idiot, knucklehead, I wish they'd be present a little bit more. How about showing up for this? And maybe they are. Maybe they're bringing as much as they can to the conversation, and maybe I'm playing a part in it.
So it does allow us to check this out, and this gives us a tool to ask for what we want. So here's basically the tool. You've probably seen some other variations of this, and we like to start on the right-hand side up at data. And when we have a conversation for journaling, and then we can use the journaling. If I go to Tom and I said, here's what I saw. We want to use I statements, not here's what you did. That immediately, puts somebody in defensive posture. Well, when you said this, or when you did this, right? But here's what I heard you say. Here's what I saw you do. Here's what
here's what I experienced in that moment. Right. Or what I saw was blue, not red, or it's just data.
Yep. And you really want just the facts there in I statements. And then, so let's say I said, Tom, when I heard you say, I'm not going to do that, I felt angry. I felt sad, or I felt excited, or I felt nervous, or I felt angry and sad and confused. So I'm taking responsibility for my feelings, and I'm also checking in with myself, right? Because we're not just we live in our head a lot, but the reason we react the way we do and respond the way we do is because of how we feel. So this gives me a chance to pause and say, well, when I heard him say that, I ended up feeling nervous. I ended up feeling afraid, right? Because what I make up is, so this is the judgment part, is so what I make up. This is where I play the film in my head. What I make up is, what's coming next is that you're going to power up on me, or what's coming next is that my ideas are going to get shut down, or whatever, right? Or
this is just like that other time in this other part of my life. Mm-hmm. And we find people go all the way back. When's the first, when we were able to break this down with them, when's the first time you felt like this? When I was 4. I mean, all the way back then, and just saw this golden thread of these feelings and judgment go all the way back through life. And I've always responded like this and always wondered why I did. So it's important to break these things down. We're not talking about a long process. After you work this for a while, it becomes instantaneous. And so these first three are so crucial. You have to separate the data from the feelings, from the judgments, right? And a judgment again would be, you know, you're always, you never. Those are judgment statements, and there's plenty more.
And that's why when you get to this piece and you're like, so what I'm making up is you don't respect me. What I make up is you don't really care about me. What, you know, it's all those things that I'm willing to say that are going on in me towards that person, but I'm taking ownership.
And once I'm in that place, if I go to there in my head, you're going to disrespect me here. How present can I be? How much am I actually listening or trying to understand? I've just closed the whole conversation down.
And we recommend when you do this with someone, give them the model, you keep the model, you spend some time beforehand doing this so that when you get together, you clear out your schedule, you don't have interruptions. You know, again, it can be 10 minutes. It doesn't, you can, you know, if you keep short accounts, you can do this regularly so nothing ever blows up, or hopefully not very often. And that you look at this as an opportunity to bridge the conflict and be able to hear one another better. Because when I get to what I need to own, all of a sudden the other person goes, oh, you're actually going to go first. Like you're going to own something first. So I might say what I need to own is I do that too sometimes. Or what I need to own is, oh my gosh, like I have hurt people that way as well. Or what I need to own is I, given the right set of pressure and circumstances, could absolutely react the same way. So now I'm leveling this playing field where the other person goes, oh, you're not judging me. You're not pushing me away. You're saying that, you know, you could be able to behave like this. And now what I want. And this is what people sometimes never get to, is what I want, right? They just like are you, and I feel like this. And then two people never really get to like this, well, what do you want, right? I mean, Tom and I have practiced this so many times. Sometimes it's just like, well, what do you want? We just go right there, right? And so I'm able to say, what I want is that when we get in this place where you're feeling this pressure around like raising your voice, what I want is, would you count to 10? Would you just count to 10 and then talk to me? Or would you wait and say, I can't address this now. Can we talk about this later? So I get to get really clear around, how do I want this to go differently next time, right? Or what I want is for you to tell me, you know, whatever, fill in the blank. But you really, and then the person gets to say, I can do that, or you negotiate that.
When you say that kind of thing, I get angry and I'm not even sure why. Right? So it's about me. It's not about you. She can't make me angry. Nobody can make you feel anything. I mean, you can set up circumstances that you react to, but if that's true, then you have no power over yourself. If somebody else can, you know, make you happy, sad, glad, afraid, whatever it is, right? So it's really important for us, and this helps us take responsibility for my part, for who I am, what I'm bringing, and helps us separate these things. Because when you get to this point in time, especially if it's somebody you're dealing with over a period of time, you're going to help them. You're going to actually experience that they have more compassion for you because they want to be clear with you as well. And clear communication is a wonderful thing.
And so it really brings a lot of compassion and a lot of respect into the relationship.
No, we already kind of hit on these things just for your reference, if you want to pull that down.
And we want to get them into rooms, but yeah, before, these are some good reminders too.
So why don't we, Megan's running in the background. She's our producer. She's going to get us into rooms, and here is, I'm going to shut this part off since you have access to it. And the question that we want to ask is, how do you feel when you're not understood, or that you can't make yourself understood? Okay? Pretty simple question. I think it's common to all of us. And then, you know, if you have time, if you want to reflect on this model, you know, I'm going to try this part going forward. So the question is, again, how do I feel when I'm not understood, or I can't make myself understood? And, you know, is there part of this model that I can use, or I'll try going forward? We're going to have, how long? about 6-7 minutes for this time in this triad. So I encourage you to be succinct to allow the other people to have a chance to respond as well. Listen for understanding when somebody else is talking in your group. And we'll look forward to coming back with you in a few moments and hearing what you found. See
See
you
you in the
soon.
rooms.
Thanks, Megan.
We're back.
Welcome back.
So let's quick do some feedback on this, you know, about being in your rooms, and you can put it in the chat box or jump in. How was that for you? What'd you like? What didn't you like? How'd you feel?
It was fun. We had we had similar reactions, a feeling of being invalidated or wasting our time, and just feeling like what's Malcolm brought up. He's from South Africa, and he said some people from different cultures might not be able to follow this model, or it wouldn't mean anything to them. So then you'd have to even be more understanding and slow down the communication even more to accommodate that.
Well, Malcolm wants to put our heads together and come up with a South African version. You can help me
Yeah.
interpret.
Yeah, depending on the culture, we would need to tweak this, right?
That's a great observation. There's cultural differences, and sometimes becomes a cultural language barrier as well.
Yeah.
Words don't even mean the same in Colorado that they do in Boston, you know, so it's
Yeah, pop, soda, bubbler, water fountain. But also some cultures may be really uncomfortable talking about the feeling piece, right? So great.
Mhm.
Any other feedback?
Well, the power of clarity came to mind. Just sort of its inherent, once clear, it's like, oh, very clearly I can go 2.1. But without that clarity, it's like, you know, in my case, whether as we talk with Tanya, whether it's journaling, which I also do, which is less vulnerable than today I need to talk with this guy or this gal just to get clear. And sometimes it's like, really, dude, I mean, is this the next step that really has to be taken? And yet out of that, that sense of vulnerability lessens, and yet the power of that clarity sort of increases, if that makes sense.
You know, we'll often talk about, and we learned this in coaching, is we want to look good and be right. And so that's where we get hung up, right? I want to look good and I want to be right. And I can't go into this model with that attitude. I have to go into it saying, I need to suspend judgment, seek to understand, and really work towards coming closer together in the relationship.
In a conversation with Chuck, we recently landed on what's the difference between our opinion and our position. And so oftentimes we move from opinion and the nuances of opinion, we go to a position. This is what I believe, and nobody's going to change that. And we kind of shut down communication and understanding. And we don't give the other person much grace either.
So thanks for participating in something that could maybe feel a little bit risky, right? If you've not, and you're in rooms with people that you don't know at all, we're just going to encourage you to take it, practice in some safe places with people that will know you, like you, and love you no matter what. I know somebody in our room said, hey, I wish I would have had this model for this conflict that, happened. And so now you have it. And we just encourage you to, use it and let us know, give us feedback on how it's working. If you have questions, you can reach out to us and say, hey, I didn't understand this part, or, I've got a question or whatever, but it will, I promise you, I go to the bank on this, that if you use it and if you use it often, all of your relationships will stay cleaner and better. And you'll find out that when you're done, you're closer, not farther. So,
and your self-understanding will
yeah,
definitely increase.
So we want to move to bottlenecks, because bottlenecks are always a part of what we do. And I know, Connie, you did a bottleneck last week. So we want to check, last time we were together last week. So we'd love some feedback quickly on, were you able to take at least one of those suggestions and consider it?
Yes, as soon as we hung up from the call, I remembered a guy I'd heard that I'd been introduced to last year that does the same thing I do. So he's definitely somebody I could talk to. But as I thought about it for a couple of days, it's taken me 40 years to get to the point where I am now, where I get paid a lot of money for a small amount of work. instead of the other way around. So I'm not quite ready to give that up yet. But I am willing to now devote 1 day a week to writing instead of letting the engineering take over my whole life, and consider joining a community, because lack of direction is what really holds me back it's like the main thing other than, personal whatevers.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Wow,
I-
that's awesome. It sounds like you got impacted by several of those ideas.
Yeah.
yeah, especially the fly lady and another woman who does what I want to do. It was just nice. I know both of those. It's like, yeah, you could do it. It was nice to be reminded by an outsider, so to speak. Why not go ahead and give it a shot?
Awesome. Well, we'll look forward to your book.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So a bottleneck, a reminder again, is an issue, a challenge, or an opportunity you're facing, where we're going to ask you to describe it in a minute. We're going to ask clarifying questions for 2 minutes. And then for 3 minutes, we're going to ask you to mute so we can just rain ideas on you. And so we like to say, of the many millions of bottlenecks in our work and our life, which one would someone like to present this morning? So who's got a bottleneck? Unmute and jump in. Who's going to have some courage today? I can wait. I can let silence do the heavy lifting, as a coach would say.
May I share something?
Yes, Malcolm. Okay, so we're going to give you a minute to present your
Did you want to
bottleneck.
present a bottleneck, Malcolm?
Yes.
Awesome.
I've had a heart to help small businesses in poor areas and in poor countries. I have a direct contact to people in a town called Tuba in South Africa. They have some money invested there in the ministry to help poor people start businesses. I'm not sure how to go about doing that. It's a culture I understand, so that's not the problem. But it's how does one start businesses in impoverished areas that can make a difference in those cities and towns?
Wonderful.
Help.
So that's your challenge, right? How can a business in an impoverished area, how can we help them start?
If I can add to that, there is a culture of handouts, and that's what I think is the issue. We want to do it the right way, so we empower people to run a business properly, not to just receive a handout and then
Yes.
it all falls in a hole.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Okay, so now we've got 2 minutes to ask Melanie and Malcolm some questions. You can ask them out loud or in the chat box.
Folks, is there any activity that you've already undertaken that would be helpful for us to know in this area moving ahead?
Yes, I had the opportunity to start a Christian school there, an orphanage. It's obviously to a Christian ministry there, but it's in an area of probably 500,000 people, of which there is extreme poverty, which I'm aware of. And I've never attempted it in poor areas to do a small business.
Question as far as these handouts, and you're trying to get people to build businesses to replace those. If they already have a handout, my question is there areas they don't have a handout that they really need to have and start your business there? And then once they realize that they can, replace the handouts, because is the handouts ever going to disappear?
That's very good,
Yes.
because the handout is normally money.
Oh,
where
you can get anything with money. Okay.
Yeah. Whereas if it's a handout of knowledge and skills, that makes a big difference. It's like the fishing thing, you teach a man to fish.
Okay.
Melanie, is there an openness to learning and acquiring skill?
I would say there's a great hunger for it.
Yes, there is. We have a school there that churns out good, well-educated young people, mainly Zulu speaking. In that community, their parents are teachers or doctors or lawyers, so they're people of significance, but they don't seem to have the knowledge.
Well, I have two questions. One, have you identified a person, possibly somebody graduating from your school that could come alongside you, you could mentor to oversee this? And two, have you done the research to find out what the community is lacking that they need, that there's not an abundance of those already?
Okay.
Okay, so that's
Yes.
a little bit like maybe a question and a suggestion, and we're ready to move into suggestions. So we've got 3 minutes, and Malcolm and Melanie, you guys have to mute yourselves and just take notes on this, okay? And go.
One of the things, a model is already there of the troubled kids that they send to farms. And when the kids plant the plants and they actually see them grow, they see value in themselves rather than just being handed things. So that's one of the things you might really emphasize, is them seeing value in themselves because of accomplishment, not just being given.
Christy says she's South African as well. Where are you planning to start this business? You can put your answer in the chat box. And
She lists her experience in working in South Africa, so she might be a good connection for you.
Yep.
I'm going to throw in that we have 3 to 5 clubs in Kenya in poor areas, and that model of living in community and learning how to do a business with one another has been really successful in other places. So you guys are in one, you've got books, you've got training and knowledge in terms of bringing that. I remember Chuck telling this story of the egg lady and helping the egg lady make sure that at the end of the month she wasn't spending all her money, but she was taking some of the money and buying more chickens. And she doubled, tripled, quadrupled her business in a short period of time, just on the concept of how to look at that money and what to do with it in terms of reinvesting in her business versus, not having anything at the end of the month. And that was through the pillars, the 4 building blocks of 3 to 5 clubs. So you've got a model there as well.
The other thing you might do is, dependent upon the age group of your school, if it goes up to what we would consider high school, you might within the school begin to create a business environment by doing a small business within the school, teaching them how to manage, and then you can actually graduate those people into a full-blown business.
Suzanne said she's got 22 years of experience working in South Africa, and especially with NGOs. Her suggestion is you focus on work with women, and secondly, work on export goods. I would suggest you guys download this chat when we're done as well. Cindy suggests, since there's already a monetary handout, my thoughts are how can the people create a system of bartering? Can you read the rest
It's
of
a
it?
win-win and mutually beneficial.
Thank you.
One more. Anybody else got one last one? Okay, well, good. Melanie and Malcolm will check in with you next week to see if you've moved forward on any of these ideas and suggestions, but that's exciting. And you've got some context in the chat also. We want to remind you to go to the Rising Phoenix site, which Tom will put up here, and you can put your email if you haven't done so already, and receive the latest Thrival guide. There's, gosh, I saw 2 new pieces of information on the PPP and EIDL just in the last couple days, because there's still money available, and it looks like even some new guidelines. So Chuck is updating that on a regular basis. You can also be featured, put your story of success or shift or pivot, or someone else's. And we're especially looking for those stories like today where people are doing innovative things, or you have pivoted. This isn't a time where we're selling anything. It's really a time we're inspiring, teaching, and motivating. You doing bottlenecks, you can sign up to do a bottleneck. You can nominate a friend who's got a story, and then certainly a place to get support. So you can email us at grow@3to number 5 club.com, grow@3to5club.com, so we can help you and make sure that you have a chance to connect with one another as well. And
We want to encourage you to go to the link down at the bottom, 3 to 5 Club, find out more, because the components we're talking about the last couple of weeks, including today, come out of the basis and the curriculum in 3 to 5 Club. In this next month, we're working on what we call freedom maps. So if you're the only one doing everything in your business, and you're finding that you're working a lot on minutia and not the things that are actually growing your business, it'd be a great time to visit a 3 to 5 Club. And you can come and visit for free and get to see some of the people there and find out what it is to be in community. You know, some of the components are being expressed on this show.
And we just always encourage you, whether it's our community or some other community, you need to be in community. We need to be in community. We're going to do more in community. It's not a should, it's a get to. You heard Andrea's and Janelle's story. Andrea, right?
Yes.
Right? All of a sudden my brain like, what? Did I say the right name? And Janelle's story about collaborating. And so we want you to get in community, and we will never get off the treadmill if our name is in every box. And so we invite you to even come as a guest next month to one of the clubs. There members, you can, invite them to yours in the chat box if you want. Hey, join me. Here's when I go. We've got clubs like in Ireland, across the country, in Africa, many places around Denver and other states in the United States, in Dallas and on the East Coast. And so much is still virtual. So we'd love for you to visit and see if that might be an option for you, and you might find another community as well. So we just want to help you have some accountability buddies, we call them, in community.
What are we looking forward to next week?
So we are really looking forward to Josh Allen Dykstra being with us next week. And some of you know Josh, so put a hoot in the chat box about him. What was the phrase I wrote down? Josh, creating a world where everybody will love work. So that's one of the things that Josh helps us do, is not only define what we're good at, he helps us define what we actually love to do, not just what we're good at. Doesn't that sound like a great recipe? Is like, I do this thing and I really love it. I mean, how many of you have been in jobs where like, yeah, I'm good at that, but I really hate doing it? And so this is going to give us a chance to hear from Josh and talk about how can we help others not only do what we love to, or do what we're good at, but do what we love to do as well, because there's an intersection. And Josh is full of energy. He has a company called Helios, Helios. We can put that in the chat box if you want to check it out ahead of time. And so we're really looking forward to having Josh with us next week. So we always like to end with
BFO, which is blinding flash of the obvious, or some enlightenment today, something go, gosh, I can take that away. I can use that. So if you'd like, we'd like to close with that.
And community, and a little something on community, right?
So you can just unmute yourself, share your BFO today, or put it in the chat box, whichever you like.
I like the communication method, showing that it can be broken down and we don't have to live always misunderstanding each other.
Thanks, Connie.
Thanks, Connie. Yeah. Tom Fanning, you could say this, Tom, the power of clarity, right? Clarity is power, right? You're muted.
The power of clarity.
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go. Big smile.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm excited to implement this circle of trust communications. I love that you called it that, Cindy, right? It does. The clear communication model does create a circle of trust. I think my BFOs, I loved what Andrea and Janelle shared this. Like they just got me thinking about who else do I know that I could partner and collaborate with? Because it's much more fun, much more powerful, much more engaging.
Just moving toward having that kind of relationship increases both sides' businesses. and reminds you as every time you connect that you're not in it alone.
Yep. Yep. Seeing a successful lumberjack partnership. Thanks, Tanya and Christy. Keep it clean. No MSU. Yeah, you might want to make a little poster for yourself and catch yourself making it up. Like, man, our imaginations are just wild.
I also liked what the two women said about how they're just having so much more fun
Yes.
with their, it's a benefit.
Who would have known? More fun and more business.
Aren't you just attracted to that?
Yeah.
I'm so attracted to that. That's who I want to work with, right? Got one more? What are you taking away from today?
I really like the concept of keeping relationships clean and healthy. I just like that verbiage.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. Well, Tom, you want to send us out with talking about community and
Certainly.
what we can do to be more a part of it?
Community is a core of what we do and what we're about. It's been a personal area of study for me for a number of decades. I won't date myself. But this is what I found. When I get at my worst, if I start to reflect, I realize I'm cutting myself off. I've been hiding in my own head with my own junk. So I am stuck with the trees and can't see the forest around me. If I can get together with even one more person, let alone several other people, and allow them to share their perspective, my world opens up and struggles and problems become a little more simple, because maybe I'm like you. I can add complexity to anything in about 2 microseconds, but allowing someone else to help me dissect it or even reflect it back to me breaks it down to simplicity. The power of community is the power of life shared. Thanks so much for sharing your life with us this morning. Appreciate you taking the time. We look forward to more.
Thank you. Invite somebody to hear Josh next week. He's awesome.
Feel free to hit those 3 little dots down at the bottom of the chat box. Download the chat if you like. You can connect with people.
Thanks, everybody, for participating. See you next week.